I mean, to which degree does Netanyahu represent the Israeli people? Is a real question.
To which point does Trump or Biden represent the American people?
And to which degree does Hamas represent the Palestinian people?
Does none of these represent it, but who have the power in order to make the decisions? It really comes down to that.
Well, who does have the power? You're giving a lot of power to Israel.
Yeah.
But the Arab League...
What should Hamas do? What do you think we should Hamas do?
What's up, y'all? Bassem Youssef was a guest on the Lex Fridman podcast. They debated about what's going on in the Middle East, with the focus being power, accountability, and ultimately blame. Lex Fridman tried to do the both sides thing, but Bassem doesn't really let him do that. They have a really good debate that in tone is very calm, but in context is actually very heated. Let's watch these clips and I'll give my thoughts on it afterwards.
Continue doing what a charter says, which is trying to destroy Israel. And the role of the Palestinian people is to overthrow Hamas and get a more moderate leadership, probably. And the role of the Israeli people is to vote out this right-wing government and elect a more moderate leader so that there's a chance at peace with two moderate leaders.
So before Hamas even got to control 2006 Gaza, there was Ariel Sharon in 2000. And we all know what happened. And Ariel Sharon kind of like came up with this amazing policy of like breaking people's kids' bones in the Intifada. So Hil Barak was also like, I mean, which one is moderate? I mean, I think Hamas is a product of what happened. I mean, we can, if there was no apartheid in South Africa, there would be no NFC. There would be no Nelson Mandela. If there were no Nazis in Paris, there would be no French resistance. And I'm not saying that, and again, don't want to be put in a position to defend Hamas or anybody because you know what that entails. But those are like Hamas, again, not defending them. They went into October 7th. What was why did they do that? Like release our hostages, the people in prison. Because if you're talking about people who were kidnapped, Israel kidnaps people every single day. And when they had the first exchange on November 4th, Israel released 400 people, 3/4 of them were women and children. Why are those people in prison? There's 1 in 4 kids that are in prison that stay in solitary confinement, which is by international law a form of torture. And you're putting kids through that.
Is it possible? So first of all, ceasefire.
Yes.
And longer term, is it possible for Arab states and the United States to get together and with power through diplomacy enforce a solution?
It's a very, very ideal solution, but you know, and I know that the Arab states don't really have the power. All of the powers are in the hands of America.
I think they have the power. See, I think they have the power. I don't.
Maybe they don't want to use it.
They don't want to. Well, that's
maybe they
because there's a benefit. Like the dark sense I have is that a lot of people win from the suffering that Palestinians are going through because they can point to that and distract from
definitely
corruption in their own states. And then obviously Iran can benefit also from the same kind of dynamic, distracting from the authoritarian nature of their regime.
Definitely, but what is the core of the problem here? Is it the Arab states using the suffering, or the suffering itself? And the suffering comes from people being displaced. Their homes were taken away. There are 7 million Palestinians in diaspora. 7 million. 7 million went out there, and now they're living in Canada and America and Europe. They had homes there they cannot go back to. 1.7 million people of the people in Gaza don't belong in Gaza. They were pushed from other places.
For such a smart sounding person, Lex Fridman sometimes says the dumbest things. Like maybe one day the moderates will take over, and then what does a moderate freedom fighter look like or sound like? Pick one from history. There's never been that because they're fighting for their lives, literally and collectively. So in their position, what does it mean to be a moderate? And if you're trying to dominate and cleanse a whole people, what's moderate from there? Doing the same policy, just a little less? Doing the same policy, but taking a longer time, slowly? Is that better or worse? Lex has built a good imaginary aura around himself as this fake smart guy because he's seemingly reasonable. But if you actually listen to what he's saying, he's either misinformed or trying to misinform.
The piecemeal thing of people are being, in Germany, I'm going to shift gear a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of fun. There is a book that I bought the rights to, and I want to turn it into a movie. Mm-hmm. And I optioned the right for 2 months, for 2 years in March of last year, before October 7th. After October 7th, I bought the permanent right. Mm-hmm. That book is called The Muslim and the Jew. And it is written by an author called Ronen Steinke. I read an article about this book in 2016. And I chased that book for rights for 7 years. I didn't have that much money, but I wanted that book. And that book was translated into English called Anna and Dr. Helmi. And that book tells the incredible story under Nazi Germany, where Arabs went in droves to Berlin in the 1920s after the First World War in the Weimar Republic. And they became doctors and engineers and journalists for 2 reasons. Number one, it was dirt cheap. Very cheap because of the inflation. And 2, a lot of the Arab nationalists didn't want to send their kids to England or France because they were the occupiers. And Dr. Helmi was the hero of that. He's an Egyptian doctor. And that's why I personally kind of connected with him. And he went to school, medical school, didn't find a place to live, so he lived in the Jewish ghetto, like many Arabs. He didn't find a school to work at, a hospital to work in, so he worked in a Jewish hospital. So there was a lot of Arabs who lived with the ghetto. And actually the first director of the Berlin mosque was a Jewish convert who converted to Islam, and he was a gay activist. I'm telling you, this is like a crazy story.
Yeah.
And this is not a fiction story. This is actually like a non-fiction. It's written actually based on the statement, the documents of the Nazis and Gestapo. Dr. Helmi, he was in this hospital, and the Nazis came in and they killed and tortured and beat up the Jewish doctor, and they made him the head of his department. Then now he is surrounded by Nazi doctors. They didn't touch him because he was an Arab. There was kind of like a thing between Germany and the Arabs because they wanted to appease to them in order to have kind of a grassroots base in the Arab world where he wants to go next.
Mm-hmm.
Books and movies and different media that shows people working together, especially in a super hostile time, is good because there's always people looking for an excuse to divide. So if you can be creative, you might as well use that to show that people can work together. I support it because at the end of the day, most people, like regular people, the ones not in power, actually have more in common than not.
And this is why 1934, 1935, the racial laws of Nuremberg, they had a name change. First, they were called anti-Semitic. Then they changed into anti-Jewish because also Arabs were Semitic. So they wanted to appease the Arabs. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened to Dr. Helmi when that happened to him? He would go back to the ghetto and he would see the apartments next to him, the Jewish apartment, become more and more and more flooded with people because they were moving Jews and pushing them and putting them together, pushing them to the side. And each apartment, instead of one family, it would have 3, 4, 6, 7 families. And he was there when at home, and he was there. This is where the people he grew up with, he lived with, and now he's seeing that kind of discrimination just because he was an Arab. And then he started to kind of like atone for, like, because he felt responsible because he wasn't treated the same way, and he started to go and treat Jewish people in their homes because they couldn't go to hospitals. And then one family gave them his daughter. It's like, this is Anna, save her. He took her, pretended that she's his niece, put a hijab around her, taught her Arabic, called her Nadia, my daughter's name, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he hid her in plain sight for 7 years in front of the Nazis as his nurse. It's an incredible story. And then not just that, he went to prison, and then he went out and he formed with the Arab people that was in prison with him a network that saves 300 Jews. You see that kind of story? This is the Jews that were living in the Arab world. I'm not saying that the Jews living in the Arab world was living like an incredible life. Of course, as like kind of a minority, they did not have like the full power of their full, advantages of the ruling. That's normal. But we had this kind of a relationship before Israel was erected in 1948. And then, of course, everybody looked at Jews at the time as fifth column. And of course, the nationalistic regimes used that. And this is why what Biden said was very dangerous when he said, if there's no Israel, no Jew in the world will feel safe. You are the leader of the free world. You are the president of the United States. Do you mean that you're telling me that the Jews in your country, in the United States of America, are not safe? That is wrong on two levels. Number one, America historically and right now is more safe to Jews in America in the world than more than anybody. They are safer than the Jews in Israel. They never had pogroms or the Holocaust like Europe. They live here a good life, not perfect life, but they are better. Second of all, if you're the president and you're telling that a group of people will not feel safe unless there's a different one, you are already feeding into their fifth column. They're like, you're Russian. You come from there. And there is a group of laws in the Russian constitution that says that Russia will protect its citizens everywhere in the world. What happens if the president says like, oh, you're Russians. You're protected by your own country. You don't belong here. This is terrible.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually an indirect threat. It's like,
yes.
Even saying Muslims cannot feel safe in America or something like this. That means like that's a threat.
But what would a Jewish person in Beverly Hills or in Brooklyn feel if he hears that? You are already telling people you need to be loyal to Israel.
People in power that want to keep their power always want to make people more afraid than reality, more scared of their imagination than what's going on in the real world, because people are going to then vote away their own rights. But then when you say you have to be loyal to this other country because of your religion, then that puts Jewish people in a tough situation, which is very understandable. That doesn't mean you have to support anything that happens anywhere to anybody in your name on your behalf. If you don't support what's going on, then you have to say that, because people are going to count your support before you say otherwise. And by the end of this, it seemed like Lex Fridman was more so giving pushback while being open to the dialogue, which is actually one of the better showings in regards to this debate, where people could just have a disagreement and still be open to what the other person is saying. That's how you have a conversation. It's not just my talking points versus your talking points. But if you want to see a can of whoop ass be open on a lobbyist, click this video to watch Mehdi Hassan do just that. Peace.